Starting off this list at number 10, we have Kamala Harris becoming president. So in season 11, episode 17, Lisa wore a purple suit with pearls as she was announced as being the president in an episode that was based on the future. On December 3rd, 2019, Kamala Harris officially ended her campaign to become the Democratic nominee for president, after stating she did not have enough funding to continue. She did not immediately endorse another Democratic candidate, but pledged to continue fighting to defeat Donald Trump, so she became vice president instead. Kamala Harris wore a purple suit during the Inauguration Day ceremony. Coincidence? Now at number 9 is the Big Ben going digital. In season 6, episode 19, also glancing into the future, Lisa falls in love with an English man. The two took a trip to England to meet his parents, and the episode showed the Big Ben clock tower having a digital display. It reappeared 17 seasons later next to the St. Beetle's Cathedral in the Holidays of Future Past episode. The Big Ben in fact hasn't rang and has been silent since 2017 for repairs, but are they going to be making any new additions? Coming in at number 8 is a force field. In season 11, episode 17, Bart is in a bar singing. The people aren't a very big fan, so they end up throwing their beer bottles at him. They, however, were not hurt because a red laser-like force field appeared in front of the stage. This one's kind of scary because, yeah, what if a force field was real to protect us, but also what if it could be used to trap us somewhere? An aerospace and defense company recently earned a patent for its first ever force field. The design submitted to the United States Patent and Trademark Office as a method and system for shockwave attenuation via electromagnetic arc. So basically like the one in Hunger Games, or in Cabin in the Woods. Taking our number 7 spot, we have robots stealing human jobs. In season 23, episode 17, it's career day and Homer is on stage talking about his job. The presenter talks about how all these jobs that people have could be replaced by robots, so they wouldn't have to do it. Obviously, for some jobs, people still have to be involved, but they've already developed machines to do a person's job. Those are machines, but it could be full robots one day like in The Simpsons. Moving on to number 6 is a hologram. In season 11, episode 17, Bart gets a knock at the door, and it's what looks like a mailman delivering him a hologram message. Now this seems cool and all, but what if holograms got really far developed and they were so good that we couldn't tell what's real and what's fake? Like in Spider-Man Far From Home, when the drones and Mysterio were creating a whole hologram around him, and he didn't know what was real. Researchers have created holograms that change from one image to another, something that could one day lead to the development of animated holograms. Halfway at number 5, we have virtual food. In season 11, episode 17, Homer and Marge are sitting at the kitchen table having virtual food. They say it doesn't taste very good, but eat it anyway. They're wearing what looks like a VR headset, but they have a black tube in their mouth that they are chewing on. I mean, we do have VR, so how really far off are we from developing something like that? A few years ago, 2 people from California went to New York to experience what's called a virtual augmented reality art and dining experience. They did it in a very similar way that The Simpsons had done it in the show, however, they still ate real food. I guess virtual food is still a ways away. Now at number 4, we have Ivanka Trump runs for president. In season 28, episode 4, The Simpsons made a subtle point suggesting that the first daughter, Ivanka Trump, would run for president when Homer wore an Ivanka 2028 pin. Later in the same episode, it showed Ivanka taking over Ruth Bader Ginsburg's position on the Supreme Court. The episode was released in 2016, and Donald Trump didn't assume office until January 2017, so I guess they actually predicted Donald Trump's presidency. But say she did run against her father. Could it have come true? Here at number 3, we've got Living on Mars. In season 27, episode 16, Marge isn't happy when Lisa volunteers for a one-way trip to Mars. So Marge volunteers to go with her. The idea behind the exploration is to colonize Mars before 2026, a date that moves up to the end of the week. The takeoff fails, but Lisa and Marge make it to Mars in 2051, only for Lisa to announce she wants to move to Venus. Elon Musk's SpaceX is currently developing a plan for Mars-bound cargo flights for as early as this year, but to fully colonize Mars would require an out-of-this-world budget. And we are already halfway through the year, and they haven't yet. Coming in at number 2 is Hoverbus. In season 11, episode 17, we see a few second clip of what looks like a city bus going by, but it's hovering just above the ground and it sounds electric. Now, electric vehicles, that's something that's already been done, but not hover buses, or at least not yet. Chinese engineers were inspired by the inconveniences of traffic jams in the city and thought of a way out. They invented a hover bus. Not exactly like the one in the show, but quite similar. A model of the transit elevated bus was inaugurated at the 19th China Beijing International High-Tech Expo. Now, personally, I don't know how safe I'd feel with a hover bus. What if it malfunctions and starts going up higher and higher and higher, and then it loses power and drops out of the sky? Or if you're crossing the street and it doesn't see you and goes by and chops your head off. I mean, maybe not, but we don't know. Now taking our #1 spot is Bigfoot. In season 1, episode 7, while on a camping trip, Homer is mistaken for Bigfoot after falling into mud and is captured by scientists for observation. But it was really Bart who encountered the real Sasquatch in 2002 while exiting a bus in Canada. I mean, Bigfoot being real, I'm not too sure, but then again, what can we really say about photos like these? Guess we'll never know.
Starting our list right at number 10, we have the God particle. There was a major breakthrough in 2012 called the Higgs boson, better known as the God particle. This explained how everything in the universe has a mass. However, it seemed that Homer Simpson discovered it well before 2012. Guess you can call him a genius. Because in a 1998 episode in season 10, Homer turns his attention to becoming an inventor, taking inspiration from Thomas Edison's life story. Surprisingly, during his time in the lab, Homer accidentally predicts the mass of the Higgs boson, or the God particle, as seen in the picture with his representation of donuts. So is the God particle a donut? Well, not exactly. According to scientists, if you work out the equation, you get the mass of a Higgs boson that's only slightly larger than the nanomass of the actual Higgs boson. Another scientist named Simon Singh claimed that the equation is a playful combination of various fundamental parameters like the Planck constant, the gravitational constant, and the speed of light. So I'll be the first to say it, Homer is not the scientist we want, for specific reasons, but he's in fact the scientist that we need. Coming at number 9, we have the 2013 horse meat scandal. Season 5, episode 19, in the episode Sweet Seymour Skinner's song that aired all the way back in 1994. Seymour gets fired due to pranks caused by Bart Simpson, with Flanders of all people replacing the principal. In a quick visual, we see lunch lady Doris rummaging for horse parts in a barrel to add to the school lunch. Attention! Horse meat is back on the menu, boys. It's no surprise since we've seen Doris do much worse things like date Hans Molman or getting it on with groundskeeper Willie. Fast forward 19 years and the Safety Authority of Ireland discovered horse DNA in over 1/3 of beef burger samples from many supermarkets and ready meals all around the world. This would be known as a 2013 horse meat scandal. Guess horse racing is slowly changing into horse eating. At our number 8 spot, we have a baby cry translator. Season 3, episode 23. In the episode Brother Can You Spare Me 2 Dimes that aired all the way back in 1992. Homer's long-lost brother, Herb, helps create a device that could translate baby cries into real words. This device would have the ability to translate an infant's gibberish into full English sentences. Imagine if this could be done. Oh wait, it did. Fast forward 24 years, in 2016, Taiwanese scientists developed an app that could distinguish different crying sounds of a baby and translate into more common speech. Researchers said that the app can immediately decode a baby's crying sound within 15 seconds. So if you ever want to have a full-blown conversation with a baby, your time is now. Tragically, at our number 7 spot, we have the Seyfried and Roy tiger attack. Seyfried Fishbasher and Roy Hearn, the famous Vegas performers who worked with big game cats, were parodied by the show in 1993. The Simpsons predicted the horned tiger attack 10 years before it actually occurred. In the season 5 episode Springfield, Homer and Ned Flanders travel to Las Vegas where they meet Gunther and Ernst, which is basically a parody of Siegfried and Roy. Near the end of the episode, one of the duel's white tigers is shown attacking one of the performers. Then, 10 whole years later, in 2003, Horn actually suffered a career-ending injury after a tiger attacked him during a show. The prediction from afar seems remarkable, but the Simpsons production crew dismissed it by saying that it was bound to happen. Guess they spoke tragedy right into existence, and they were so right about it. With our number 6 spot, we have the faulty voting machines. Season 20, episode 4, which aired in 2008, Simpsons showed Homer trying to vote for Barack Obama in the US general election, but a faulty machine changed his vote. It showed Homer's vote change from Obama to his political rival John McCain. Now 4 years later after the episode in 2012, Obama was up against Republican Mitt Romney. There was someone in Pennsylvania who filmed themselves voting, showing that the machine they were using was broken. Just like in the episode, the machine would switch the Obama picks with Mitt Romney picks. Right in the hump of our list, we have autocorrect. The Simpsons supposedly predicted the autocorrect feature in a 1994 episode. This feature wasn't invented until 2007. In this episode, Bully Dolph wrote the memo, beat up Martin on his Apple Newton. Then the text autocorrects to eat up Martha. When Apple worked on the iPhone keyboard in 2007, rumors say that the engineers knew what they needed to get right, and that was the autocorrect feature. Could this be influenced from the show, or did The Simpsons predict yet another incredible technological feat? Coming in at number 4, we have a Nobel Prize. In season 22, episode 1, which aired in 2010, it showed Homer, Lisa, Milhouse, Martin, and others putting a pool together to bet on who would win the Nobel Prize for economics, chemistry, and other categories. We got to see the Nobel Prize for economics get announced, and while Jagdish Bhagwati won the fictional award on the animated TV show, Milhouse actually casted his vote on Bengt Holmstrom, previously shown on the paper. The thing is, he actually won the Nobel Prize 6 years later after the episode aired, which makes us rethink what's true at this point. Could Milhouse be the one behind Simpsons' predictive powers? Who knows? All the way at our number 3 spot, we have Canada legalizing weed. In a 2005 episode called Midnight RX, filmed during the show's 16th season, character Mr. Burns starts a chain reaction making prescription drugs affordable in Springfield, Illinois. Because of this, Homer and Grandpa Simpson started smuggling cheaper drugs from Manitoba, Canada, and found out that they were praised as heroes. On one of their future runs, they were joined by Apu and Ned. While in Canada, Ned meets a Canadian version of himself, set with a curly afro, but instantly starts taking a disliking to him after the counterpart tries to sell him a reeferino, which was legal there. Remember, this was back in 2005 where marijuana legalization wasn't even thought of. Then, fast forward 13 years later, in 2008, the prediction came true. Canada made cannabis legal in all provinces and territories. Time to add one more correct prediction in our list. All the way at our number 2 spot, we have FaceTime. Season 6, episode 19, which aired all the way back in 1995, Simpsons seem to have predicted commercial video calling. Remember, this is 1995. These were pre-internet days, and in this episode they showed Lisa time travel to a time when she's having a face-to-face online chat with her mom, Marge, which was virtually impossible at the time. Oddly enough, 15 years later, Apple re-announced their new and revolutionary FaceTime. But I don't really know what's so special about lagging out every single 2 minutes. But what about Skype? Well, first of all, Skype is almost dead, but Skype was released in 2003, which was still well before the making of this episode. Even though technology was leading to the discovery eventually, Simpsons always seemed to be ahead of the game. All the way at our number 1 spot, we have Donald Trump. 16 years before Donald Trump's win in the US elections, The Simpsons predicted the billionaire businessman would become the president. In season 11, in an episode called Bart to the Future, the show predicted a Trump presidency back in 2000. In the episode, Lisa is pictured sitting in the Oval Office surrounded by advisors, where Lisa said that, quote, "We're inherited quite a budget crunch from President Trump." The show also mocked Trump in an episode last year after he announced he was running for president. The show even featured a scene where Trump was seen waving from an escalator, almost exactly mirroring a video of him taken in 2015. Is The Simpsons a product of predictive programming, or are these too far-fetched to believe? Please let us know in the comment section below with your thoughts and opinions. I'm your host Andrew, and I hope you have a scary day. At our number 10 spot, we have All in a TV Show. Many times in the show, we see Rick break the fourth wall. Not a real physical wall, I mean the wall that separates the character from us, the viewers. So it's assumed that he knows that he's on a TV show. And this is no surprise because the show shows us many times that anything is possible, given that there are an infinite number of parallel worlds. This would mean that somewhere down the line, you would find a universe that has you in your own personal TV show. And in the episode Interdimensional Cable 2, Tempting Fate, a little exchange between Rick and Morty happens, with Morty asking, quote, "Hey, what are you doing?" And with Rick replying, quote, "A sequel." And if you think about these interdimensional cable episodes, it's basically about Rick watching the lives of other people, making their lives his TV show. So this would just tie into this theory and give more reason for Rick to know he's actually on a TV show. And if we apply this to myself, for example, this would be a TV show of us making a TV show of someone else watching a TV show of someone else watching us. At number 9, we have We Are a Video Game Character. In the episode Morty Night Run, we are introduced to a video game named Roy: A Life Well Lived. When they arrived at the Blitz and Chips arcade, Morty decides to hop onto this game after realizing it's a virtual reality life simulator. When he enters the game, he plays as Roy Parsons, and the goal of the game was to guide Roy throughout his lifespan from birth to death. When Roy passes away, the game ends and Morty is brought back into the real life. So basically, he's lived out an entire lifespan of someone else. So this brings up the question, what if we were all in a video game? And more terrifying, what if we were all being played by someone else without us ever knowing?
What the hell? Where am I?
55 years.
This would also encourage simulation theory, but the fact that someone could be playing you in a video game throughout your life is something to think about even more. At number 8 spot, we have Infinite Universe. In season 1, episode 6, named Rick Potion number 9, Rick and Morty practically destroy the Earth with a Cronenberg virus. This virus was initially thought to turn the Mantis people back into regular humans, but instead it turned all the people in the world into twisted blobs of flesh, similar to things you may see in a Cronenberg film. After the majority of the world was affected by the virus, the two left their reality for another almost equal, where their other selves just happened to pass away just before they arrived. This led to the theory, what if people around you are from other universes who replace their own selves? Even though the multiverse is completely hypothetical, it doesn't seem far-fetched. If you knew that your next door neighbor was from another universe, what would you say to them? How would you react? Would you be scared? At number 7 spot, we have Rick and Morty's dynamic is a representation of mental illness. Rick and Morty are two very different characters, one being extremely smart and the other one being kinda stupid. Many believe that along with this balance, both internally in them, each and combined, they represent dark illnesses such as severe bipolar disease, alcoholism, insanity, and many more. Rick is extremely intelligent and very good at manipulating people, which could be seen as a coping mechanism for someone with bipolar disorder. He is always dealing with unusual circumstances and also has a very hyper-optimistic outlook on life, something that is very characteristic of someone dealing with depression. In addition to this, Rick is frequently manipulative and controlling of his loved ones. This behavior reflects the way in which people with bipolar disorder often behave towards those closest to him. On the other end, we have Morty, who is nowhere near as clever but is as affectionate and wants nothing more than just to please him. This could be seen as a coping mechanism for those who have schizophrenia. Morty does a lot to seek approval from Rick, which is all common to the illness. The show wanted the characters to be relatable in a sense, which also includes real human mental illnesses. At number 6 spot, we have Rick wasn't an idol, he was a warning. Certain fans think they need to be smart and have a high IQ to understand Rick and his jokes, yet people believe he is a warning of how terribly ignorant and cocky young people can become. Rick was always willing to put his fans in their place, whether it be through clever jokes or his brutal honesty. He was always aware of the way we can easily be taken advantage of, and he wanted to make sure that we all knew. He wanted to stop giving our power to something so easily destroyed, and he wanted us to use our power for good. And Rick did use his power for good sometimes. Just like when he and Morty threw a huge party on the episode Rick's Business. He froze time to give him and Morty time enough to clean up the house before Beth and Jerry got back. He also saved the world many times. Eventually though, everything caught up to him. But that's kind of why personally I love his character so much, and why other people love him so much, which is because he is a reminder that no one is invincible and that we all have to face our fears eventually. Right in the hump of our list, we have Uncle Steve. In the season 2 episode Total Recall, we are introduced to Steve Smith. From the looks of the episode, it seems like he is well liked by the family and he is showing the utmost respect for Jerry, which kind of seems over the top at times. Scene goes that they're sitting at the dinner table when Steve announces he paid for a family vacation for all of them. Then Rick insults Steve and soon after pulls out his blaster and goes for the head. As the bullet goes through his head, it reveals a purplish pink goo and his body shapeshifts into an extraterrestrial. Rick explains that they are a telepathic civilization that embed themselves in memories and multiply more of them on Earth. So what if there was an alien race living among us? I mean, after the photos of the James Webb Space Telescope that were recently revealed, it's just astonishing to think how large the galaxy is and to think there's so much more. There is zero chance we're the only ones out there. So aliens probably exist, but them living among us is a different story altogether, which makes this theory much more scarier. We had UFO sightings, encounters, but what if one tiny green alien managed to fit right into our society, just waiting for his opportunity to strike? At our number 4 spot, we have Enter Into Our Dreams. In just the second episode ever released from Rick and Morty, named Lawnmower Dog, we are introduced to a concept similar to the blockbuster movie Inception. I remember watching Inception for the first time as a kid and coming out of that movie with zero knowledge, so props to Rick and Morty for giving homage. Kind of. In this episode, Rick creates a device that enables you to go inside someone's dream. A Freddy Krueger parody named Scary Terry would go into people's dreams and turn them into nightmares. But when Rick and Morty enters his dreams, they alter the way he acts towards people. As well, they did this for Morty's math teacher in order to give himself a better grade. So what if we lived in an Inception / Freddy Krueger universe where dreams could be entered? The thought of it is terrifying. The fact that we can't control our dreams and the fact that someone can just manipulate our thoughts in our dreams without us doing anything at all doesn't sound too nice. There's already a concept of lucid dreaming, which is when we are aware that we are in a dream and can freely move and manipulate our surroundings at will. So imagine that, but someone else in your dreams. Instant headache. All the way at our number 3 spot, we have every episode is a different Rick. A fan theory found online suggests that the Rick that we are watching on the show as of now is not the original Rick. In this show, it is known that Rick disappeared from Vet's life for decades. For all we know, Rick and Morty lived in a parallel universe identical to the one the show started in, which is C-137. The only difference between the two universes is the Cronenberg monsters, but everyone else lived practically the same lives. The theory continues by saying that the Rick we see is a Rick from another universe where everyone he knew and loved passed away, which would actually explain his substance abuse with alcohol and his crazy near-death antics every single episode. At number 2 spot, we have clones. Just before the episode Big Trouble in Little Sanchez, Rick conducted one of the most wild experiments to date. He was able to transfer his mind into a clone named Tiny Rick in order to hunt for a vampire that was terrorizing a nearby school. At the end of the episode, he reveals an underground chamber that holds different Rick clones in different stages of life. Then in episode Edge of Tomorrow, Rick Die Repeat, he carries on the past project with Operation Phoenix, which is when Rick passes away, he plans to have his mind uploaded into a clone body so he can continue to live. This experiment reminded me of all those sci-fi movies where it would have people being cryogenically stored or had their consciousness transferred into a computer. This has some scary implications to it because would your uploaded mind still be you? Like, yes, your brain is there and you have your past thoughts, memories, and behaviors, but everything past your neck down is foreign to your existence. All the way at our number 1 spot, we have a mini universe. In the 6th episode of the 2nd season, named The Ricks Must Be Crazy, Rick's car breaks down and he reveals that he created a mini universe inside of the battery. Rick said he put a spatially tessellated void inside a modified temporal field. And in layman terms, basically means that time inside of their universe moves faster than the one above them. He then explains he gave them electricity and they simulated a whole civilization. I always thought of a mini universe theory. When I watched the Marvel movie Ant-Man and he went subatomic to enter the quantum realm, basically shrinking himself on a molecular level, he goes through different dimensions. So what if the dimension we're just a part of is a much larger dimension and it just keeps going on? The universe is huge and we're just a tiny speck, but what makes you say that we're not part of some bigger reality and we're completely unaware of it? Big food for thought. Starting our list right, we have Bart is destined to enter hell. We all know that Bart is a troublesome and disobedient character. Most of the Simpsons episodes show Bart acting with no filter, usually causing mayhem all around Springfield. In one episode, he's seen acting friendly towards the devil. This is something worth mentioning because throughout the whole show, we see that Bart has trouble listening to others, but when it comes to the devil, he is all ears. In all past depictions, the devil is able to see into the future, so approaching Bart shows that someday he will join him in hell. Coming in at our number 9 spot, we have Bart puts Homer in a coma forever. In season 4, episode 18, we see Bart trying to play a prank on Homer by shaking up his can of beer, except it goes very, very wrong. The beer explodes and puts Homer in a coma. This is where Reddit user Hard to Pick a Name, well, he claims that Homer has been in this coma for the remainder of the whole show due to Bart's devilish pranks. Like, I mean the whole show, from seasons 4 to 33. The season 4 episode ends with Homer waking up and choking Bart, but it all seems a little too sudden. This would explain why none of the characters seem to age during the show, since Homer only remembers Bart, Lisa, and Maggie as 10, 8, and 1 years old. And if we think about the plot lines before and after this coma, it gets pretty weird. Before this episode, the plot lines included Bart cheating on an IQ test or Homer trying to give up drinking. Yeah, sounds pretty normal. But after this coma, the plot lines include Homer going into space, or even Mr. Burns discovering the Loch Ness Monster. Some say this is Homer's imagination running wild while he's in a coma. He's able to dream up scenarios and fantasies that literally bend the rules of reality. Tragically, at our number 8 spot, we have Bart ruin Martin's life. During the course of the show, Bart is shown to cause problems to wherever he went and whoever he met. In the second episode ever of The Simpsons, called Bart the Genius, he swaps his aptitude test with Martin's. Bart's test is given a very high score, and as a result, he is sent to a separate school for the gifted. He ends up confessing later and then is removed. However, on the other end, Martin never fully recovered from this. While Bart was ultimately removed from the gifted school because he did not belong there, Martin never even got the chance to attend. Well, it's kind of sad because instead of moving on to a program where he could have been challenged and potentially thrived, Bart's cheating has kept Martin stuck at this underperforming, poor educational Springfield Elementary School. To our surprise, at number 7, we have Bart is a stonecutter. In the 12th episode of the 6th season, Homer the Great, we're introduced to the secret organization, the Stonecutters. The Stonecutters are a group of people who value greed, power, and privilege. So it's not really hard to believe that Bart is a part of this one. A Reddit user by the name of Ty Piper coined this theory. He stated that in order to become a stonecutter, you must either be the son or save the life of one. In one episode, Bart donates his blood to Mr. Burns, which saves his life, which makes Bart an immediate candidate. Have you ever wondered how Bart receives barely any sort of punishment for the mischievous deeds he does? Well, it seems that Principal Skinner is a stonecutter himself. And if that wasn't enough, Grandpa Abe is also a stonecutter, which makes both Homer and Bart eligible to join. Bart just seems like a perfect candidate, and despite the fact that you don't see him in the table of stonecutters, it's simply because they don't need to be present. Especially since he's a child after all. You may have heard this one, but at number 6 we have Dead Bart. While characters on the show rarely die, apart from Maud Flanders, one early episode from the series sees Bart bite the dust, according to some intense fandom chatter. The rather grim theory floating around suggests that there is one unaired episode out there titled Dead Bart, in which the eldest Simpson kid was killed after being sucked from an airplane. But it's also been debunked by some as a simple creepypasta story. The show's producers also named an episode Bart's Not Dead, which kind of poked fun at this theory. There's also some grainy footage circulating around the internet, which some diehard fans may use as evidence. But this theory is not backed up with that much evidence as the others in this list. Right in the hump of our list, we have Bart has ADHD. Bart is not your regular 8-year-old. His actions are much different than you'd see from a regular kid his age. From consistent pranks to blowing up Springfield multiple times, Bart's brain would be an interesting piece for psychologists to study. And that's exactly what they did. And after deep investigation, they came to the conclusion that Bart has ADHD. For example, in the first episode of season 2 called Bart Gets an F, he gets easily distracted by video games and television, which accounts for his bad grades and missed family announcements. This distraction affected his grades so much that he needed to repeat the 4th grade. On top of this, Bart has shown many signs of deceitfulness, serious violations of the rules, and deliberately annoys people. Bart also talks excessively and is unable to stay quiet most of the time. And guess what? These are all signs that Bart has ADHD. Well, I'm not trying to say that bad grades equals ADHD, but a combination of his actions and his motives show clear symptoms of the disorder. You wouldn't believe what we have at number 4, and we have that Bart is actually a genius? According to Reddit user Kirby Clock, everyone in the Simpsons family is a genius, including Bart. In season 9, episode 17, we learn about the infamous Simpson gene, which claims that Simpsons males get increasingly dumber as they age, while the women don't get affected at all. This would explain why Bart and Homer are troublemakers with little to no logic behind their actions. Then in season 12, episode 9, we learn that Homer would actually be an intelligent man if he didn't have a crayon lodged up his nose and near his brain. With the crayon removed, Homer's IQ goes up a total of 50 points. Despite his newly profound intelligence, Homer decides to put the crayon back in hopes to avoid debates and arguments with his friends and the community. Bart ties into this because he makes a similar decision. Even though his dad is dumber than ever, he is actually a happy person. Bart is said to follow this path of dumb happiness from his father, because sometimes being happy is better than being smart. However, you can see glimpses of his intellect through his well thought out and clever pranks. Basically, Bart is aware of his intelligence but denies it to avoid a deep depression like his father. All the way at our number 3 spot, we have Bart exploits allergies. We all know Bart as a troublemaker, but this one seems a little bit too dark. Exploiting someone's allergies is not only cruel, but you know, it can also cause death, making Bart a potential murderer. After his school bans peanuts, an annoyed Bart discovers that it's not a student with this, but it's in fact Principal Skinner. We know how much Bart likes to prank the principal, so he decides to take full advantage of this opportunity. He places a peanut on a stick and shoves it in Skinner's face. He uses a stick to bully the principal in many ways, such as hurling beer cans in his direction, and even forcing him to do the classic writing on the blackboard. This is one of the cases where Bart just went a little bit too far. At our number 2 spot, we have Bart created the Hypnotoad. Let's switch shows for a second. Do you remember the Hypnotoad in the Futurama universe? Because according to Reddit user Cole Burns, the Hypnotoad would have never existed if it wasn't for Bart Simpson. In season 6, episode 16, called Bart vs. Australia, Bart decides to release an invasive species of frog into the wild. We see many instances of this frog around the Simpson universe as well, including a 2056 election and with Lisa in the beginning of a Treehouse of Terror episode. The general idea is that at some point after the toad was introduced to the land down under, it adapted into its future form. This is pretty crazy because this would mean that these two shows coexisted in the same universe. Taking our number 1 spot in our list, we have the evil twin. In the first episode of season 8 named Treehouse of Terror, we are introduced to Bart's twin Hugo II. However, his twin brother was much more evil and sinister than Bart himself. In this episode, Bart, Lisa, and Maggie discovered Hugo after they heard strange noises coming from the attic, and after Homer spilled the beans about there being 4 Simpson children. As the evil twin, Hugo has been living in the attic of the Simpson home, and once a week was given a bucket of fish heads to eat because, well, he was supposedly evil, right? Hugo also did experimental surgery to prepare for his eventual reattachment to Bart and create a pigeon rat in the process. The family later learned, however, that Bart was actually the evil twin, as Hugo's scar from when he and Bart separated was on the wrong side. Bart then took Hugo's place in the attic and was fed fish heads, while Hugo was moved downstairs to live with the family. Coming at number 10 spot, we have Bikini Bottom is the result of nuclear testing. This one blew my mind. See what I did there? Now the main reasoning behind a nuclear bomb is because some say that Bikini Bottom is located beneath Bikini Atoll, which has been a well-known location for nuclear bomb testing. And we all know how nukes are so evil, right, Mermaid Man? This would explain everyone's ability to communicate in a human fashion, their strange behavior, and a host of other wacky characteristics. This show has many depictions of nuclear mushroom clouds. I know we have all seen it. And apparently in one episode that features a town called Rock Bottom, it supposedly mimics a crater created on the ocean floor due to one of these nuclear bomb tests. That's not all. You remember that island they hopped on when they went above the water? That's supposedly Bikini Atoll. And the reason why it's empty is because the US government relocated the 146 residents of the island to conduct these nuclear tests. SpongeBob creators hid this from the public because why would anyone want their children watching a show about post-nuclear sea animals? Doesn't sound too pleasing. At our number 9 spot, we have SpongeBob bootleg tape. This is one of those cases of watching a video that is cursed, kind of what you see in the movie The Ring, except this one is on the kids show SpongeBob. This image was taken from a split-second frame in a corrupted bootleg of the SpongeBob episode Dump. The story is about a tape that was found by a group of 5 teenagers who were rummaging through trash cans outside an abandoned mental hospital. Other than the image, the rest of the video is composed of incomprehensible jumbles of colors, static, or just black screens. The audio seems to be a heavily distorted version of the audio from the original episode, with loud droning buzzes occasionally interrupting it. Of these 5 individuals, 2 have taken their life, 1 has gone missing, and 1 refuses to comment on the tape. At our number 8 spot, we have the main characters represent the 7 deadly sins. The 7 deadly sins of Christianity are said to be represented by each of SpongeBob's main characters. According to some fans, Gary the Snail, a bottom feeder who never stops eating, represents the sin of gluttony. SpongeBob's obsession with acquiring a driver's license, or Pearl's obsession with boys, could be referred to as lust. Mr. Krabs, who once has sold SpongeBob's souls for 62 cents, is undoubtedly an example of greed. Patrick is the laziest person I know in the show, and he turned the sin sloth into a way of life. Given how much Squidward despises Patrick and SpongeBob, Wrath ought to be his middle name. Plankton shows envy the way he despises the success of Mr. Krabs and is always trying to steal the Krabby Patty formula. And of course, pride plays out in Sandy, who thinks she's hot stuff being from Texas and all. If they truly do represent all 7 deadly sins, I don't think this would be God's favorite TV show. At our number 7 spot, we have Krusty Krab's secret formula is crabs. So this theory suggests that Mr. Krabs is a cannibal. Let's dig into the series because it's kind of juicy. So if you really think about it, Mr. Krabs is the only crab in Bikini Bottom, but why? In a past episode, Mr. Krabs says this.
So that's what I taste like.
And if you take a good look at the Krusty Krab restaurant, doesn't it kind of look like a lobster trap? You know, crabs, lobsters, same thing kind of. So he makes a ton of money from selling crabs, so he definitely keeps it a secret so no one will truly know about the horrors of what he is doing. At a number 6 spot, we have Chum Bucket's Dark Secret. Since we just mentioned the Krusty Krab, I thought it was best to mention their not very good rival, the Chum Bucket. We all know that everyone in the Bikini Bottom completely hates the Chum Bucket. This is why every day Plankton gets up to steal the secret formula because it's just not working out for him. A theory proposed by Reddit user SpongeBob Lover 04 states that the chum bucket runs off of cannibalism. First of all, chum is the bait they use to catch sharks, which is usually made up of ground up fish. This would mean that Plankton secretly hunts down fish to ground them up and mix it into his burgers. The fish that would be going to eat at the chum would be literally eating their own kind. So this definitely makes sense why they're feeling extremely sick after eating this. At the hump of our list, we have Plankton is damaging SpongeBob's brain. As the show went on, it seemed that every episode had SpongeBob doing something more absurd than the last. I read a theory proposed by That's a Yikes, stated that Plankton's various incidents with SpongeBob caused him to damage his brain. First things first, Plankton was quite literally inside of SpongeBob's mind in the episode Plankton, allowing him the ability to mentally program SpongeBob, as well as showing a competent ability to manipulate the functions of the brain. In the SpongeBob SquarePants movie, Plankton is shown to have mastered mind control with his chum bucket helmets, most likely due to the success he had on SpongeBob. Time and time again, Plankton has altered SpongeBob's brain, so it's definitely malfunctioning.
Come on, baby, what's the name? We threw out his name!
Kinda dark stuff, Plankton. At a number 4 spot, we have It's a Metaphor for World War II Germany. According to fan theory by Drake Grayson, the show represents pre-World War II Germany. Squidward, a failing artist and a complete jerk, acts like Adolf and wants to evict all of his neighbors. In the case for Adolf, it was the Jews, so SpongeBob kinda represents them in the eyes of Squidward. Patrick is pretty much oblivious the whole show, so it's said that he represents the ignorance and the blindness of the German people when the genocide was happening right in front of their eyes. Sandy represents America, always karate chopping her way out of conflict, just like how the US came in the war guns blazing. Finally, Mr. Krab represents the rest of Europe, treating Germany, aka the Bikini Bottom, along with Adolf or Squidward, poorly since Germany started the war in the first place. This one is nuts for me because I would have never thought you can put Adolf and SpongeBob in the same sentence ever, but I guess you can. All the way at a number 3 spot, we have SpongeBob represents global warming. One Redditor made the claim that SpongeBob is a metaphor for global warming. He claimed that all characters have their part in explaining the theory of global warming and its detrimental effects in the sea. For example, SpongeBob is quite literally a sponge and represents the waste and pollution that is made in the world. We all know that pollution causes greenhouse gases that warm the earth, eventually melting icebergs, floating earth, you know the vibes. So SpongeBob is the pollution, and he works for Mr. Krabs, who resembles large corporations responsible for the waste in the first place. Mr. Krab loves that SpongeBob works for him because he takes little to no pay with maximum efficiency, showing that these corporations only care about the money and not the environment. Patrick represents Western civilization because he is unhealthy, unintelligent, and quite literally lives underneath a rock, and only instigates SpongeBob, which is the pollution, to wreak more havoc in the Bikini Bottom. At a number 2 spot, we have every character suffers from substance addiction. The show was first pitched as an adult cartoon, so before all the child-friendly goofy scenes, there were a few mature topics that were left out of the show. One writer claimed that every character on the show is addicted to some sort of narcotics. SpongeBob is supposedly on speed or methamphetamine due to intense feelings of happiness, increased energy, and his intermittent paranoia that comes every now and again. This fan claims that Mr. Krabs is the dealer, and that's why SpongeBob is okay with making little to no money. Mr. Krabs is said to be addicted to cocaine because of his love for money, which satisfies his substance cravings. Squidward is said to be on opioids, which explains his relaxed nature and his urge to be left alone. Then we have Patrick, who is supposed to resemble the common marijuana user, but in my opinion, he seems drunk half the time. So maybe he does a bit of both. This theory is kind of dark, so I'm sorry to some of the kids who have to hear this one. Coming in at number 1 spot, we have SpongeBob is a nature documentary for humans. Okay, so a YouTuber by the name of Alex Vale coined this theory in the first place, so credits to him. He explains this in more depth, but here's a little summary. He said that SpongeBob is actually a nature documentary film by humans to investigate abnormally intelligent sea creatures that act like humans. In an old SpongeBob DVD, there's a bonus feature that shows human scientists studying and filming the creatures of Bikini Bottom because the fish are exactly acting like humans. There's even one episode where SpongeBob is taking a driver's test and he even runs over the human camera guy who's narrating as well.
Test for the year, and if SpongeBob does not pass this one, it means another whole year of boarding school! What happened?
We can clearly see his human legs, so this kind of confirms his point. You also remember the human hand that would appear on screen, especially in the opening song when he puts on SpongeBob's pants? Yeah, well, this is because SpongeBob is the main character of the documentary, meaning he has to take care and protect him. Then there's another episode that shows a human family watching SpongeBob and turning it off on the TV, further proving this theory.